Changing your oil should make your Ford run smoother, not send you back to the shop broke. But one skipped step before an oil change, or one careless move after, can turn a $70 service into a $3,000 repair. I'm RJ. I've spent over 20 years under the hoods of Rangers, F-150s, Broncos, and EcoBoosts, watching engines survive because of good habits, or die from simple mistakes. Today, I'll show you the 5 things you must do before every oil change, and the things you should never do after. Part A. The 5 things you must do before an oil change. 1. Check the vehicle's current oil level and condition. Don't just wing it. Before you touch the drain plug, grab the dipstick and check the level and color. Yes, some shops skip this and start draining. Don't let them. A low or smoky oil tells a story. Burning oil, coolant contamination, or severe dilution. If oil looks milky or smells like coolant, you need to diagnose before changing oil. Changing it and driving can hide problems and mask a leak until catastrophic failure. I once had a 2012 F-150 come in. The owner demanded a quick oil change. The dipstick showed coolant haze. We found a cracked intake and a leaking head gasket. If we'd just changed the oil and sent him off, the owner would have been surprised by engine failure at 500 miles. 2. Inspect the service history and verify the correct oil spec. Don't assume any synthetic will do. Ford engines have specific specifications, Motorcraft or approved equivalents with the correct viscosity and 4 WSS numbers. Know whether that truck has a tuned engine, an aftermarket turbo, or a power boost hybrid. Those need different oils or tighter intervals. In the bay, I check notes. Has this owner been using cheap oil or extended service junk? If they run heavy towing or a tune, I recommend a stronger HTHS 5W30 and shorter intervals. A wrong spec may not blow up the motor instantly, but it silently increases wear on timing chains and turbos. 3. Inspect the oil filter type and compatibility before removing the old one. Too many shops slap on a universal filter or the cheapest option. Some filters have different bypass pressures or poor media. On EcoBoosts or Coyotes, that can cause oil starvation or delayed pressure rise. Ask for Motorcraft or a high-quality equivalent, Wix, Mobil 1, etc. If you're DIY, have an OEM filter ready. We once had a truck with repeated low oil pressure after a quick lube visit. Turns out the shop used an off-brand filter that collapsed under flow. Replacing the filter fixed it, but it could have ruined bearings before we caught it. 4. Confirm drain plug and gasket condition. Replace if suspect. You'd be surprised how often an oil change leads to leaks because the drain plug gasket was flattened, the plug threads were chewed, or someone reused a missing crush washer. Inspect the plug and pan mating surface. If the plug's magnetic or if the washer's damaged, replace it. A stripped drain plug can lead to a half-drained pan and drive-off situation. I've drilled out more stripped drain plugs than I want to count. It's messy and expensive when it requires pan repairs. 5. Prime the oiling system plan, especially for turbo cars and performance builds. This one's for the turbos and modern Fords. Have a plan to prime the oil system. If you're servicing an engine that's had the oil removed for any reason, filter housing off, pan off, or aftermarket filter relocation, plan to crank the engine with the starter only, no ignition, to build pressure, or use a drill pump to prime the turbo and galleries before start. Some shops forget priming and rev the engine on the first start. That's how turbo bearings get scored. We always spin the engine via starter to get oil pressure up before any revs. It costs 30 seconds and saves a turbo. Part B. What to do during the oil change. Short, but critical. Drain fully and inspect oil for metal, coolant, or fuel smell. Any metal flakes or milky color, stop and diagnose. Replace filter correctly. Seat gasket properly. Torque filter to spec. Hand tight plus 3/4 of a turn. Or use the torque number if given. Don't over-torque. You'll strip threads or squash gaskets. Use the correct amount and type of oil. Measure carefully. Fill to the lower mark, then prime and recheck after initial idle. These sound obvious, but shortcuts here are the root of most after-change dramas. Part C. Never do these after an oil change. Never number 1. Don't rev or load the engine immediately after startup. This is the number 1 fatal mistake. Fresh oil takes seconds to circulate. Revs or load before oil reaches cam phasers, lifters, and turbo bearings means running dry. I had a customer who got a free oil change, revved to hear the engine, and within a week his EcoBoost developed a cam phaser tick. We pulled the timing cover and found the phaser faces dry on the first start. The shop hadn't primed the oil system. Let it idle 30 to 60 seconds, watch the oil pressure gauge, then drive normally. Number 2. Don't ignore the oil pressure light or low pressure warnings on first start. If the oil pressure light lingers, shut the engine off. Check the filter, drain plug, and oil level. People ignore that light because they've seen it blink sometimes. That's a dangerous habit. Customer drove a half-mile with the light on after his DIY change. He lost bearings and had a $4,200 repair. If the light stays on, get it fixed before you drive. Never number 3. Don't drive off without checking for leaks and verifying the level after a few minutes. Start. Idle. Walk around the truck, look for drips. Recheck the dipstick after a few minutes. I can't tell you how many mystery low oil calls are just a loose drain plug or cross-threaded filter that's leaking. The small check saves you a tow. Never number 4. Don't overfill or underfill and assume close enough. Overfill creates foaming and aeration. Aerated oil won't protect bearings. Underfill starves high-pressure components. Always fill to spec, prime, and recheck. We once had a 5.0 Coyote where the owner overfilled by 2 quarts. It aerated and caused a lifter rattle that required a teardown. Never number 5. Don't assume the shop used the right filter or correct torque. Always record the filter brand and part number on your service record. If you feel greasy around the filter area or smell of oil after driving, pull over and check. A wrong filter or poorly seated gasket can spew oil in minutes. Never number 6. Don't ignore unusual noises after the change. Check immediately. A new noise after an oil change is not a coincidence. It might be a bearing complaint, a phaser tick, or a turbo whine. The faster you stop, the better your chance to prevent catastrophic failure. Never number 7. Don't drive hard for the first 50 to 100 miles after switching grades or going from high mile to synthetic. If you've changed oil types, conventional to synthetic, or changed viscosity, give seals and rings a short break-in. Run easy and then recheck level. Many people floor it after a fresh change. Not smart. Never number 8. Don't reset maintenance lights without ensuring the service was done properly. This is mainly for service centers. Do not clear oil service reminders unless the correct oil and filter were used. A false reset hides the problem. Never number 9. Don't stop documenting what was used. Oil brand, viscosity, filter part. Keep a sticker or log in the glove box. If a problem shows up later, you'll thank yourself when you can prove what went in the crank. Never number 10. Don't dismiss an odd smell, burning oil or coolant, immediately after a change. If you smell oil burning or coolant smell after a change, pull over. Either the oil contacted a hot exhaust from a leak, or there's another issue that's serviced because of disturbance during service. Part D. Real shop stories, so you understand the real cost. Story A. The double gasket disaster. A quick lube shop left the old filter gasket stuck to the block and installed a new filter on top. The owner started up, saw a drip, ignored it, and drove 12 miles before the engine lost 2 quarts. Turbo bearings got cooked. Repair? $3,200 for turbo, gaskets, and oil service. Lesson: always check the mating surface. Story B: the missing priming step. We had a 2.7 EcoBoost in with a rattle after a home oil change. Owner had swapped to a cheap off-brand filter and hadn't cranked the engine to build pressure before revving. Cam phaser faces and some lifter lobes were dry. Repair: phasers and timing cover, $2,700. Lesson: prime the oil system and use proper filters. Story C: the overfill aeration job. A customer had a full synthetic change and someone overfilled by 3 quarts. The oil foamed, bearings squeaked, and the car consumed oil aggressively. Cost: $1,000 for cleaning and a part refresh. Lesson: measure, prime, check. Part E: common questions and straightforward mechanic answers. Question: how long should I let my Ford idle after an oil change? Answer: most people don't realize how important this step is. The moment you start your engine after an oil change, your entire lubrication system is empty except for whatever film was left on the moving parts. It takes a few seconds for the oil pump to build pressure and push fresh oil through the galleries, into the cam phasers, across the bearings, and up into the lifters. For most Ford engines, 30 to 60 seconds of idling is ideal. That gives the oil a chance to reach every corner of the engine. But if you're running an EcoBoost 2.7, 3.5, 1.5, 2.3, I want you closer to a full minute. Turbos rely on a steady stream of fresh oil, and dry turbo bearings are one of the fastest ways to kill an engine. If you primed the oil system properly, especially on newer Fords with push start, you might see stable pressure after 20 to 30 seconds, but don't rush. A slow, calm idle is your engine's first breath after surgery. Let it settle in before you touch the accelerator. Question: can I drive it to the gas station or store right after a change? Answer: you can drive, but you shouldn't just hop in and go like nothing happened. Once you finish an oil change, make checking for leaks part of your routine. I've had customers pour $60 worth of synthetic oil, drive 300 yards down the street, and lose half of it because the filter wasn't seated or the crush washer didn't seal. Here's what you should always do before that first drive. Idle, 30 to 60 seconds. Look under the car with a flashlight. Filter, drain plug, oil cooler housing. Walk around the vehicle and check for fresh drips. Shut it off. Wait a minute and recheck the dipstick. If everything is dry and the level is correct, yes, drive to the gas station, but drive gently. No hard acceleration, no heavy throttle, and absolutely no towing until you've done a few miles and confirmed everything is sealed. Question: is synthetic oil really better, or is that just marketing? Answer: let me put it this way. Every blown turbo, every stretched timing chain, and every sludged up EcoBoost I've seen had one thing in common: poor quality oil. Modern Ford engines run tighter tolerances, hotter temperatures, and rely heavily on variable cam timing and high-pressure fuel systems. Cheap conventional oil simply can't handle the stress. Full synthetic gives you better shear stability, the oil keeps its thickness under load, better heat resistance, especially important for turbos, better cold flow for winter starts, less oxidation and sludge formation, longer protection if you occasionally exceed the oil interval. The key is not just synthetic, but using the right Ford specification, like WSS M2C930A, WSS M2C946B1, or the newer updated specs depending on the year. Bottom line, for 99% of Ford owners, full synthetic isn't an upgrade, it's a requirement. Question: what oil filter should I use for my Ford? This is where a lot of owners get themselves into trouble without realizing it. The oil filter is not just a metal can. It controls oil flow, bypass valve pressure, filtration level, and cold start behavior. Here's the truth: after 20 years, Motorcraft filters are engineered specifically with Ford's bypass pressure requirements. They're always safe. Wix is an excellent second choice. Solid construction, proper valve design. Mobil 1 filters are good as long as you're not using an oversized or incorrect model. What you must avoid: bargain filters, universal filters, filters with unknown bypass specs, anything designed for Fitz domestic vehicles. EcoBoost engines are extremely sensitive to oil flow. A cheap filter can starve phasers, starve turbos, trigger cold start knock, or reduce oil pressure at idle. When you buy a filter, think of it this way. A $12 Motorcraft filter protects a $10,000 engine. That's not the place to save money. Part F, a simple, printable checklist. Stick this in your glove box, toolbox, or tape it to your garage wall. These are the exact steps I've used in my shop for decades. Before the oil change: 1. Check the current oil level and condition. You want to know what your engine is consuming or burning. If it's low, dark, gritty, or smells burnt, those are the clues that you need to pay attention to. Oil analysis starts with your eyes and nose. 2. Verify the correct oil spec and viscosity. Ford changes specs by year, engine family, and even build date. Don't guess. Use the door jamb sticker or owner's manual. EcoBoost engines require very specific blends to protect the turbos. 3. Inspect the drain plug and gasket crush washer. Worn-out washers can cause leaks. Damaged threads can lead to oil pan failure. Make sure the plug is clean and the washer is intact before starting. 4. Confirm you have correct oil filter on hand. Double-check the number. Look at the gasket sealing surface. Compare it to the old one before removing it. Lay out your tools so you're not scrambling halfway through the job. 5. Plan for priming if you have a turbocharged or high-mileage engine. Turbo engines benefit from pre-filling the filter if the filter mounts vertically, or at least spinning the engine without full ignition to build pressure. Know how your vehicle handles cranking without firing. During the oil change. 6. Drain the oil fully and inspect the old oil. Watch the first few seconds of flow. That tells you a lot. Sludge chunks, metallic sparkle, gas smell. These are early warnings of deeper problems. 7. Replace the filter and check the gasket seal. Make sure the old gasket didn't stick to the housing. Wipe the mounting surface. Double gasket is one of the most common and most dangerous mistakes. 8. Install the drain plug with the correct torque and washer. Hand tight first, then torque. Over-tightening destroys pans. Under-tightening leaks. Ford pans, especially plastic ones, are extremely sensitive. 9. Fill with the recommended quantity. Not close to full, not 1 quart short so I can top it later. Fill the exact amount Ford recommends and verify on the dipstick. After the oil change. 10. Prime the oil system. This means key on without starting, if applicable, or crank for a second without firing. This builds oil pressure safely before ignition. 11. Idle for 30 to 60 seconds. Let the engine settle in. Listen for knocks, rattles, or phaser clatter. 12. Check the filter and drain plug for leaks. Use a flashlight. Look for even the smallest drip. A leak now becomes a disaster later. 13. Recheck the dipstick and top off as needed. Oil circulates and fills the galleries. The level drops slightly. Get it right before driving. 14. Drive gently for the first 50 to 100 miles. No towing, no hard acceleration, no highway WOT pulls. Let the new oil seep into the system and verify seals before pushing the engine. 15. Recheck oil again the next morning. Cold oil gives the most accurate reading. This step alone catches early leaks that shops often miss. Part G. Costs and why doing it right pays. Look, an oil change costs between $40 and $120, depending on oil and filter. A bad oil change mistake costs thousands. Turbos, $1,000 to $3,000. Timing chains, $2,000 to $5,000. Engine replacement, much more. Spend a few minutes on the checks I showed you and save yourself a massive headache and money. This is not overkill. It's preventative maintenance done the right way. If this helped you, hit that like button. It helps the channel reach Ford owners who need this exact advice. Drop a comment with your Ford model and whether you change your oil at home or at the shop. I read every one, and I'll give you a quick thumbs up with tailored tips. All right, final word. Oil changes are the single best maintenance you do for your engine, but they're only effective if done carefully. Don't rush them. Check the basics before you start. Use quality parts. Prime the oil system on turbo cars. Don't rev, don't ignore lights, and don't drive off without verifying levels and leaks. Do this every time and your Ford will live longer and cost you far less. I'll be back with more shop-proven tips for Ford owners next week. I'll show you the one oil change tool every DIYer should own that saves time and prevents these mistakes. Subscribe, keep your oil clean, and I'll see you in the next video.